The Alpha King had buried his Luna with his own hands, or so he believed. For 7 years, grief turned his heart to stone. He abandoned the old pack house, swore never to return, and ruled like a beast with no soul. But when enemies forced him back to the ruins of the home he once shared with her, he heard something impossible in the night. A woman's laughter. A child's footsteps. And the scent of the mate he had mourned. When he pushed open the ancient doors, the moon revealed the truth. His Luna was alive. His son was alive. And the secret of why they vanished would destroy everything he knew. The return to ashes. 7 years had passed since Alpha King Kalen Nightfawn left the old pack house. 7 winters. 7 springs. 7 years of carrying grief like chains wrapped around his chest. The once glorious estate stood deep inside Blackthorn Forest, where moonlight rarely touched the ground. Ivy strangled the stone walls now. Broken gargoyles leaned from the roof like mourning spirits. The fountains were dry, and the rose gardens his Luna once loved had become nests of thorns. Kalen dismounted his black war horse slowly. His silver eyes scanned the mansion with cold distance, but beneath that mask, memories clawed at him. This was where Duchess Elara, his Luna, laughed beneath summer rain. This was where she told him she carried their child. This was where he buried both of them after the fire. He had not returned since that night. But war had come to the borders, and the old house held hidden tunnels only he knew. He needed them now. Strategy forced him here. Nothing more. At least that was what he told himself. The iron gates groaned as warriors pushed them open. Beta Ronin approached carefully. "My king, shall we clear the grounds first?" Kalen's jaw tightened. "No. I go alone." The warriors exchanged uneasy looks. None dared challenge him. He stepped through the dead garden paths, boots crunching over broken marble. Wind moved through shattered windows like whispers. Then he froze. Fresh footprints. Small ones. And beside them, lighter steps. Barefoot. Graceful. Impossible. Kalen crouched, touching the damp earth. The prints were recent. His wolf stirred violently inside him. Mate. The scent hit him next. Lavender. Rain. Moonflower. Elara. His heart slammed against his ribs so hard it hurt. "No," he whispered. He followed the prince to the grand doors. They were slightly open. He pushed them inward. Dust swirled through the moonlight. The entrance hall remained grand despite ruin. Torn banners, cracked chandeliers, portraits half-burned. Then laughter echoed from upstairs. A child's laughter. Kalen shot up the staircase 2 steps at a time. He reached the nursery corridor, the place he had never entered after the fire. A small wooden wolf toy rolled into the hallway and stopped at his boots. Then a boy stepped out. 6 years old, perhaps 7. Dark hair like Kalen's. Silver eyes glowing softly. The child looked up calmly. "You came back late," he said. Kalen could not breathe. Before he could speak, another figure appeared behind the boy. She wore a simple white gown. Her silver hair flowed loose. Her face was softer, wiser, but unmistakable. Elara. Alive. She stared at him with tears gathering in her eyes. "Hello, Kalen." The Alpha King, feared by nations, dropped to his knees. The woman he buried. Kalen remained on his knees, unable to move, unable to trust his own eyes. The world around him seemed to blur into silence. The ruined corridor, the cold stone walls, the moonlight pouring through cracked windows, all of it faded before the impossible truth standing only steps away. Elara was alive. Not a ghost. Not a dream. Not one of the cruel visions grief had given him in lonely nights. Alive. His hands trembled as he rose slowly. The Alpha King who had faced armies without fear now looked like a man standing before judgment. Elara, his voice broke on her name. I buried you. Pain flickered across her face. You buried what they wanted you to find. The boy beside her looked between them curiously, then tugged her sleeve. Mother, is this truly him? Her hand gently rested on the child's shoulder. Yes, Lucian. This is your father. The word struck Kaelin harder than any blade. Father. He stared at the child. His child. Dark hair, sharp brows, the night-fawn eyes. Even the stubborn way he lifted his chin was Kaelin's own reflection. 7 years of blood and breath, 7 years stolen from him. Kaelin stepped forward instinctively, but Lucian moved behind Elara. The tiny motion pierced deeper than rejection. It was fear. The boy feared him. Kaelin stopped at once. I will not harm you. Lucian's silver eyes narrowed with surprising boldness. Kings always say that before they do. Kaelin blinked. Even Elara almost smiled despite the tension. He has your tongue, Kaelin muttered. He has your pride, Elara answered softly. For one fragile moment, something warm passed between them, a memory of the life they once shared. Then it vanished beneath the weight of unanswered questions. Kaelin's gaze hardened. Tell me everything. Elara looked toward the old nursery doors. Not here. She led them downstairs through halls swallowed by dust and shadow. Lucian stayed close to her side, glancing often at Kaelin with suspicion and curiosity. They entered the old library. Unlike the rest of the house, this room had been cared for. Candles burned on shelves. Blankets lay folded near the hearth. Herbs dried by the windows. Someone had lived here for years. Kaelin took in every detail with silent fury. She had survived all this time, in his own house. Elara motioned for Lucian to sit by the fire. The boy obeyed but kept a carved wooden dagger in his lap. Kaelin nearly laughed at the sight, his son prepared to defend his mother against the most dangerous wolf in the kingdom. Elara turned to Kaelin. The night of the fire was no accident. His jaw clenched. I know enemies struck the house. No, she said. The enemy was inside your court. The room went still. She continued. Your council feared me. They feared the prophecy spoken when I conceived. Kaelin's eyes narrowed. What prophecy? Elara stared at Lucian before answering. That our son would unite bloodlines older than the Pax, and either save the kingdom or destroy every throne in it. Kaelin's pulse thundered. No one had told him this. The council came to me while you rode to war, Elara said. They offered exile if I fled quietly. When I refused, they poisoned my guards and set the fire. Kaelin's claws pushed from his fingertips. Names. I never saw faces. They wore masks. But one voice I knew. Who? She hesitated. Beta Ronan. The library exploded with snarling rage. Kaelin slammed his fist through an oak table, splintering it in half. Lucian leapt to his feet, placing himself in front of Elara with the dagger raised. Stay back, the boy shouted. Kaelin froze instantly. He stared at his son shielding her. Then, slowly, painfully, he forced his claws back. I am not angry at you, he said quietly. Lucian did not lower the dagger. You broke the table. I know. You are too large for tantrums. For the first time in 7 years, laughter escaped Kaelin unexpectedly, a rough, stunned sound. Elara covered a smile. But the laughter died quickly. If Ronan betrayed me, Kaelin said darkly, he dies before dawn. Elara stepped closer. If you kill him now, you kill the only trail leading to the others. Kaelin looked into her eyes, the same moon-gray eyes he once kissed each morning. You ask mercy for traitors? No, she whispered. I ask wisdom from the man I loved. The word struck deeper than claws. Loved. Past tense. Kaelin lowered his gaze. And now? Silence filled the room. Firelight danced over her face. Now, Elara said carefully, I do not know who you became after we were torn apart. Kaelin could not argue. He had become cold, brutal, feared. Grief had hollowed him into something half-beast. Lucian finally lowered the dagger a little. If you are truly my father, why didn't you come sooner? The innocence of the question shattered him. Kaelin knelt before the boy so their eyes were level. Because I believed I had failed you both. I thought I buried my heart here and had no right to return. Lucian studied him for a long moment. Children could sense lies better than courtiers. Then the boy asked quietly, did you cry? Kaelin swallowed. Every night. Lucian glanced at Elara. She gave the smallest nod. The boy stepped forward cautiously and touched Kaelin's cheek with tiny fingers, as if confirming he was real. You look sadder than in Mother's stories, Lucian said. Kaelin's throat tightened. Your mother still told stories of me. Only the good parts, Lucian answered. The brave king. The stubborn fool. The man who danced badly. Elara turned crimson. Lucian. Kaelin stared at her in disbelief. You remembered that? I remember everything, she said softly. A heavy crash sounded outside. Voices rose in the courtyard. Kaelin's head snapped toward the window. Torches moved below. Ronan's men. He had been followed. Lucian gripped his dagger again. Are we under attack? Kaelin rose, every inch the Alpha King now. Yes, he said, eyes blazing silver. But this time. I know what I'm protecting. He turned to Elara. There is a hidden tunnel beneath the hearth. Take Lucian and go to the forest shrine. Her chin lifted. I will not run again. You may hate me later, Kaelin growled, but you will live long enough to do it. Below, the front doors burst open. Ronan's voice thundered through the mansion. My king. We know she is here. Hand over the witch and the child. Kaelin's wolf rose like a storm. He looked at Elara one last time. No one takes my family twice. And then he walked toward the door. No one takes my family twice. The grand staircase trembled under the pounding of boots below. Men barked orders. Steel scraped from sheaths. Torches spat smoke into the old halls like invading fire. Kaelin stood at the top landing, broad shoulders squared, black coat hanging like a war banner behind him. Moonlight streamed through the shattered dome above, painting his face in silver and shadow. For 7 years, rage had been his only companion. Tonight, it finally had purpose. Behind him, Elara gripped Lucian's hand near the library doorway. She looked torn between fleeing and staying. Lucian looked thrilled. Mother, the boy whispered loudly, is father about to eat them? Kaelin almost smirked. Not if they run, he said. The front doors exploded fully open. Beta Ronan entered first, tall and armored, his once honorable face hardened by ambition. Wolves poured in behind him, 20 armed soldiers filling the entrance hall. Ronan looked up and stopped. My king. Kaelin's voice rolled down the staircase like thunder. You dare call me that? Ronan's eyes flicked toward the library shadows where Elara stood. Surprise crossed his face, then calculation. So it is true, he murmured. The dead Duchess returns. Elara stepped into view, chin raised. You failed to kill me the first time. Murmurs rippled through the soldiers. Several took uneasy steps back. They had likely believed she was a ghost already. Ronan recovered quickly. I did what was necessary for the realm. Kaelin descended one stair. Then another. Slow. Controlled. Terrifying. You burned my house. Another step. You stole my son. Another step. You fed on my grief while standing at my side. He reached the final stair. And now you come armed into my home. Ronan drew his sword. I come to finish what should have ended years ago. Kaelin smiled. It was not a pleasant sight. The first soldier charged. Kaelin moved faster than sight. One moment he stood still, the next, the soldier flew sideways into a pillar hard enough to crack stone. Chaos erupted. 3 wolves rushed him together. Kaelin shifted partially mid-stride, silver claws bursting from his hands, fangs lengthening, eyes blazing. He caught one by the throat, spun another into a wall, and drove the third across the marble floor with a kick that shattered armor. Lucian gasped in delight. Mother! He is eating them. He is not, Elara said sharply. Then after a pause, usually. Ronan barked orders. Arrows flew upward. Kaelin tore a fallen shield free and hurled it like a blade. It smashed through 2 archers and lodged in the staircase rail. Another wave came. Kaelin let the wolf fully rise. Bones cracked, muscles swelled, black fur rippled over skin. In seconds, the Alpha King stood as a towering battle wolf with silver eyes like twin moons. His roar shook dust from the chandeliers. Half the soldiers broke immediately. The other half regretted staying. He crashed into them like a living avalanche. Marble split beneath claws. Spears snapped. Men screamed and scattered. Ronan retreated toward the courtyard doors, shouting, "Take the woman. Take the heir." 2 soldiers sprinted for the library. They never reached it. Elara raised one hand. Ancient moonlight flashed from the crescent mark on her wrist. Vines burst through the floorboards, wrapping both men upside down from the ceiling. Lucian stared in awe. Mother! You never let me do that. You once tried it on chickens, she said. They were disrespectful. Even in battle, Kaelin nearly laughed. Ronan saw the magic and paled. Witchcraft. Elara's eyes turned cold. No. Blood right. Kaelin slammed the last soldier into the wall and advanced across the wrecked hall toward Ronan, still in monstrous form. Each heavy step left claw marks in marble. Ronan backed away, sword shaking. I served you. Ronan shouted. I kept the packs united while you mourned. Kaelin's voice came as a growl threaded with human words. You fed on the throne like a rat. Ronan lunged desperately. The sword struck Kaelin's chest, and shattered. Silence fell. Kaelin seized Ronan by the throat and lifted him from the ground. You will tell me every name. Ronan clawed at the massive hand. Kill me, and the others take the capital by dawn. Kaelin's eyes narrowed. Others? Ronan grinned despite choking. The council. 3 houses. They already march. They knew you would come here. Elara moved closer, Lucian behind her. Kaelin, we need him alive. The Alpha King's grip tightened until Ronan's eyes bulged. Then, with visible effort, Kaelin threw him across the room instead of snapping his neck. Ronan crashed unconscious beside a broken statue. Kaelin shifted back to human form, chest heaving. Cuts marked his skin, already healing. Lucian approached slowly, wonder written across his face. You are enormous, the boy said. Kaelin glanced down. That is your first thought. You broke 6 men with 1 chair. It was a table. Lucian nodded solemnly. Even better. Then, unexpectedly, he threw himself forward and hugged Kaelin's waist. The Alpha King froze. His hands hovered in the air as if afraid to touch anything so precious. Slowly, gently, he wrapped his arms around the child. Elara watched in silence, tears bright in her eyes. Lucian leaned back. "Can I become huge too?" Eventually, Kaelin said hoarsely. "If your mother allows it." "She allows nothing fun." "I heard that," Elara said. A horn sounded in the forest outside. Then another. Kaelin's face darkened. Scouts. He strode to the broken doorway and looked toward the trees. Fires burned in the distance, many of them. Moving fast. Not 20 soldiers. Hundreds. Ronan had spoken truth. The rival houses were coming to seize the heir and claim the throne in the confusion. Kaelin turned back to Elara. "The old house cannot hold." She straightened. "Then we leave." He nodded. "To the Moonspire fortress. It is defensible." Lucian raised a hand like a student. "May I ask a question?" Kaelin blinked. "Yes." "Will there be more fighting?" "Yes." The boy grinned. "Excellent." Elara sighed deeply. "He gets that from you." Kaelin stepped closer to her. Their faces were inches apart now, the years between them suddenly thin. "I will get you both out safely," he said. She searched his eyes. "And after that?" Kaelin looked at their son, then back at the woman he had buried in his heart. "After that," he said quietly, "I intend to earn my family back." For the first time since he arrived, Elara's guarded expression softened. Then another horn blared, closer. Kaelin scooped Lucian into one arm before the boy could protest, seized Elara's hand with the other, and ran toward the hidden tunnel beneath the hearth as war descended on the old house. The Tunnel of Forgotten Vows. The hearth in the old library looked like any other ruin, cold stone, soot-blackened brick, broken iron grate. But Kaelin dropped to one knee, shoved aside a carved wolf emblem at the base, and pressed his palm into a hidden groove. Ancient gears groaned beneath the floor. The hearth split down the middle and slid apart, revealing a spiral stair descending into darkness. Cold air rushed upward carrying the scent of wet earth, roots, and old memories. Lucian's eyes widened. "Our house eats fireplaces." "It improves them," Kaelin said. Outside, war horns blared again. The mansion walls trembled under the first impact of siege rams. Kaelin looked at Elara. "Go." She descended first, lifting her gown. Lucian skipped after her until Kaelin caught the back of his collar. "No running on unknown stairs." "I know them," Lucian said proudly. "Mother said never to use them unless monsters came." Kaelin arched a brow. "And what did she call me?" Lucian considered. "A complicated monster." Elara coughed to hide a smile below. Kaelin sealed the entrance behind them. Stone ground shut overhead, cutting off the roar of battle. Darkness swallowed them until wall torches burst alive one by one, triggered by old moonstone magic. The tunnel glowed silver. They moved downward through a passage older than the house itself. Arched ceilings were carved with wolves, moons, and vines intertwined. Water dripped softly from roots breaking through stone. Kaelin walked in front now, senses alert. Elara followed, Lucian between them. Every few steps the boy reached out to touch the carvings. "Who built this?" Lucian asked. "My ancestors," Kaelin answered. "When kings still feared losing what they loved." Lucian nodded seriously. "So they built hiding holes. Fortified escape routes. Hiding holes." Kaelin accepted defeat. The path curved and opened into a circular chamber. In its center stood a stone table covered by dust. Above it hung a chandelier of moon crystals still glowing faintly. Elara stopped dead. This room. Kaelin's chest tightened. You remember. She walked forward slowly, fingers brushing the table's edge. You brought me here the night you asked me to be your Luna. The memory rose vivid and painful. She had worn blue silk. He had rehearsed speeches and forgotten every word the moment she smiled. He had placed his family ring in her palm with shaking hands. Lucian looked delighted. You courted in a cave. It was romantic, Elara said. It was private, Kaelin corrected. It was damp, she added. Lucian laughed so hard he nearly fell over. For a moment, all three of them stood inside something dangerously close to happiness. Then Kaelin noticed blood on the floor. Fresh drops. He moved instantly, pulling Lucian behind him. Stay back. A figure staggered from a side corridor and collapsed to one knee. It was Mara, one of Kaelin's oldest scouts. Her armor was torn, shoulder bleeding. My king, she gasped. They found the outer tunnel exits. House Varkan men are hunting the forest routes. Kaelin helped her up. How many? At least 50. More coming from the North Ridge. Elara's face hardened. They mean to trap us underground. Mara's gaze shifted to Elara, and widened in shock. Then to Lucian. Then back to Kaelin. So the rumors are true. Kaelin said only, this is my family. Mara bowed instantly despite her wound. Then I die for them gladly. Lucian tugged Kaelin's sleeve. I like her. Kaelin almost smiled. Wise choice. He spread an old map across the stone table. Dust rose around his hands. There are 3 exits, he said. East Ravine, River Well, Shrine Path. The East Ravine is compromised, Mara said. I came from there. The river well floods in spring, Elara said. Lucian can't swim well enough in armor. I can float dramatically, Lucian offered. Kaelin pointed to the final route. Shrine Path, then. It leads beneath Moonspire cliffs. Mara frowned. Too narrow for horses. We go on foot. She hesitated. My king, if the council truly marches on the capital, Moonspire may already be under attack. Kaelin's eyes went cold. Then they chose the wrong night. They moved quickly through the shrine corridor, but the tunnel narrowed until only one person could pass at a time. The walls here were lined with ancient murals, wolves kneeling beside human queens, children crowned under moons, lovers joining bloodlines. Lucian studied them as he walked. Why are humans here? Elara answered softly. Because once, wolves and humans ruled together. Kaelin glanced back at her. Few still remember that. My grandmother did, she said. She taught me the old rites. Lucian frowned. Then why do packs hate human blood? Neither parent answered immediately. Finally Kaelin said, because fear survives longer than truth. The boy fell silent, thinking. They reached a stone bridge spanning a deep underground chasm. Water roared far below. Moonlight filtered through cracks high above. Halfway across, arrows whistled from the far side. Down! Kaelin roared. He threw Elara and Lucian flat as shafts struck stone around them. Dark-armored wolves emerged from the shadows ahead, House Varkan hunters. Ronan's warning had been real. There, their captain shouted. Take the heir alive. Kaelin charged before the words finished. The bridge shook under his sprint. He slammed into the first hunter, hurling him over the side into darkness. The second met claws to throat. The third never saw Elara's moonlight lance strike his chest and send him crashing backward. Lucian crouched behind a pillar, eyes huge but fearless. Mother. Again. No. A little again. Absolutely not. Two hunters rushed Alara together. She turned, but one arrow clipped her arm. Blood bloomed across her sleeve. Kaelan saw red. His roar echoed through the cavern. He seized one attacker by the face and drove him into the bridge rail hard enough to break it. The other he disarmed with a twist and dropped unconscious. Then silence. Bodies lay scattered. Water thundered below. Kaelan spun to Alara. "You're hit. It's shallow." He took her wrist gently despite the chaos. Blood slicked his fingers. His expression shifted from fury to something raw. "I already lost you once." Her breath caught. "You did not lose me," she said quietly. "You were deceived." It felt the same. For several heartbeats neither moved. Then Lucian loudly cleared his throat. "If this is staring time, can we do it somewhere less arrow-filled?" Mara burst out laughing despite herself. They crossed the bridge and entered the final ascent tunnel. Torches ahead glimmered with natural moonlight. The air grew colder, cleaner. At last they emerged from a hidden stone door into a forest clearing beneath towering cliffs. Before them rose Moonspire Fortress, massive black walls carved into the mountain itself, banners snapping in the night wind. But flames licked from one outer tower. Battle had already begun. Lucian's mouth fell open. "Do we live there now?" Kaelan stared at the burning fortress. "If I have any say in it." Then he turned to Alara, blood still on her sleeve. "When this is over," he said low enough for only her to hear, "I need to know why you never sent word." Pain crossed her face deeper than the wound. "When this is over," she whispered back, "you may wish I had stayed dead." Kaelan's heart went cold. Above them, war drums thundered from Moonspire walls. And the gates began to open. The truth she buried. Moonspire Fortress rose from the mountain like the spine of some ancient beast, black stone towers, iron gates, banners of the Nightfang crest snapping in the storm wind. Once it had been Kaelan's strongest refuge. Tonight it burned. Flames climbed one western tower. Arrows rained from the battlements. War drums thundered so hard the cliffs seemed to answer. Lucian stared in awe. "Father." Kaelan looked down. The word still struck like sunlight after winter. "Yes. Your life is extremely dramatic." Mara laughed despite exhaustion. Alara hid a smile. Kaelan crouched before the boy. "Stay beside your mother no matter what happens." Lucian folded his arms. "You keep saying that as if I wander into danger." A memory flashed across Alara's face. He once followed a bear for 2 miles because he wanted to know where it slept. Lucian defended himself instantly. "It looked lonely." Kaelan sighed. "Definitely my son." The gates of Moonspire creaked wider. A mounted rider burst out, racing down the slope toward them under a white flag. Kaelan tensed, hand already on his sword. The rider skidded to a stop and tore off her helm. Captain Saris. Commander of Moonspire's inner guard. Loyal, fierce, scarred across one brow. "My king," she said breathlessly, dropping to one knee. "Thank the moon. We thought you were dead." Report. House Varkan and House Dreadmore joined forces at dusk. They bribed half the outer garrison. "We hold the inner keep, but barely." Her eyes moved to Alara and widened. Then to Lucian. "By the gods." Kaelan's tone sharpened. "No time." Saris rose immediately. "Then come fast." They brought a seer. Alara stiffened. Kaelan noticed. "What seer?" Saris hesitated. "A woman called Mother Valis. She says the heir carries forbidden blood." Lucian looked offended. "My blood is excellent." No one laughed this time. They entered through the gates at speed. Moonspire's courtyard was chaos, wounded soldiers, burning carts, shattered shields. Loyal guards saluted Kaelan with renewed fury as he passed. Hope spread like wildfire through the ranks. "The king lives," voices cried. "And the heir," someone shouted. Lucian whispered to Alara, "I enjoy this place." Inside the inner keep, Kaelan led them to the war chamber. Heavy doors slammed shut behind them. Stone walls were lined with maps, weapons, old portraits. The same room where he once planned wars while believing his family ashes lay in the ground. Now they stood before him breathing. Saris pointed to the map. "Varkan holds the west tower. Dreadmore controls the lower armory. If they breach the inner gate, we lose the throne room." Kaelan nodded once. "Then we break them before dawn." But Alara did not look at the map. She looked pale. Distant. Kaelan turned. "What is it?" She met his eyes with terrible calm. "You asked why I never sent word." The room seemed to still around them. "Not now," he said. "Now," she answered. "Because if I die tonight, you will know the truth." Lucian moved closer to her instinctively. Kaelan dismissed everyone with one glance. Saris and Mara withdrew silently, taking Lucian only after Alara kissed his forehead and promised to return soon. The boy protested loudly until Kaelan promised sword lessons later. Then he left willingly. When the doors shut, only Kaelan and Alara remained. The distance between them felt greater than 7 years. She spoke first. The council did not only fear the prophecy. Kaelan's jaw tightened. "Then what?" "They feared me." "I know." "No," she said softly. "You do not." She pulled back the sleeve over her wounded arm. Beneath the blood and skin glowed lines of silver markings spiraling to her shoulder, ancient runes alive beneath flesh. Kaelan stared. "What are those?" "My inheritance." She lifted trembling eyes to his. "I am not fully wolf, Kaelan." He said nothing. "My mother was descended from the first moon witches, human queens who once bonded with wolf kings. Magic and blood mixed for generations until it faded." He looked again at the marks. They pulsed like moonlight. "It did not fade in me," she whispered. "It grew stronger when I carried Lucian." Kaelan stepped back as if struck. Not from disgust, but from the collapse of everything hidden from him. "You lied to me. I tried to tell you 3 times. When? Once before our mating ceremony. Twice after. But every time, war called you away, or pride closed your ears." The accusation was gentle. It hurt more because it was true. Kaelan dragged a hand through his hair. "So my council learned this and moved against you." "Yes. They believed our son would awaken powers no king could control." "Would he?" She looked toward the door where Lucian had gone. "I do not know." Kaelan's voice dropped. "And the fire?" "I escaped with the help of an old nurse. We fled through the tunnels. I meant to send word once safe." Her voice cracked for the first time. "But I heard what happened after." "What happened?" "You changed." Kaelan's expression hardened. "I buried my wife and child. You executed 20 servants without trial." His silence confirmed it. "You burned villages that sheltered enemies. You trusted only Ronin. You became a king ruled by grief and rage." Tears filled her eyes. "I was afraid that if I returned with a magical child, they would turn you fully into a weapon." Kaelan felt as though the room tilted beneath him. She had not stayed away because she stopped loving him. She had stayed away because she feared what pain had made of him. He looked at the floor, unable to deny the man he had become. Finally he asked, "Do you still fear me?" Alara stepped closer. "Sometimes." The honesty cut clean. Then she raised her hand and placed it against his chest over the old scar near his heart. But I also see the man who opened tunnels for lovers and laughed badly when he danced. Kaelin covered her hand with his own. I do not know how to be him again. Then learn, she whispered. With us. The air between them changed. Years of pain, regret, longing burning down to something fragile and real. Kaelin bent slowly, giving her time to turn away. She did not. Their lips met softly at first, then with the ache of 7 lost years. Not passion alone, recognition. Home found after exile. When they parted, both were breathing harder. A horn blasted outside. Then another. The chamber doors burst open. Cerys rushed in. My king. The seer breached the inner wall. Behind her came a scream from the courtyard. Blue fire flashed through the window slits. Ilara's face went white. Valus uses blood magic. Kaelin drew his sword. Then tonight I break a witch. He strode for the door, but Ilara caught his arm. No. She came for Lucian. Kaelin's blood ran cold. Outside, the fortress bells began ringing wildly. Then from somewhere deep in Moonspire came the terrified cry of a child. Lucian. Kaelin and Ilara ran together. The air of moon and fawn. The bells of Moonspire screamed through the stone corridors. Servants fled in terror. Guards raced toward the lower keep with shields raised, only to be thrown backward by waves of blue fire bursting through archways. Kaelin ran like a storm-given flesh. Beside him, Ilara's gown tore at the hem as she sprinted, silver hair flying behind her. The rune marks on her arm glowed brighter with every step. Where is he? Kaelin roared at a passing guard. The old throne chapel, the man shouted before collapsing from smoke. Lucian. The throne chapel sat beneath the keep, a sacred chamber built around the oldest moonstone altar in the kingdom. If Valus wanted ritual power, that was where she would go. Kaelin hit the stairwell door so hard it ripped from its hinges. He and Ilara descended into torchlit darkness while war thundered above. The chapel doors stood open. Inside, candles burned in a wide circle of black wax. Ancient symbols had been painted across the floor in blood. At the center, Lucian stood bound by blue chains of magic beside the moonstone altar. And before him stood Mother Valus. She was tall and thin as a grave branch, draped in dark veils, eyes white and blind yet somehow staring directly at them. Her fingers were stained crimson. You are late, she said. Lucian scowled. I told her you would come. Kaelin's voice became pure murder. Release my son. Valus smiled. Your son. He belongs to older things than kings. Kaelin stepped forward, but invisible force slammed him backward into a pillar. Stone cracked behind him. Ilara gasped. Blood roared. Valus tilted her head. Ah, the hidden witchwife finally returns. I am no witch, Ilara said coldly. Then why did you hide? The word struck, but Ilara did not flinch. Valus lifted a dagger carved from black bone. The child's blood will awaken the gate of first moon. Through him, the old powers rise. Lucian raised his hand politely despite the chains. I object strongly. Even Kaelin, half crushed against the pillar, almost laughed. Valus ignored him and began chanting. The moonstone altar glowed dark blue. Wind filled the sealed chamber. Candles bent sideways. Kaelin pushed against the ward with snarling force, but each step drove him to one knee. Ilara, he shouted. Stop her. Ilara stepped into the ritual circle. The runes on her arm blazed silver. No more hiding, she whispered. She raised both hands. Moonlight burst from her palms like a river. The black symbols on the floor ignited, then shattered apart. Valus hissed as the blue chains around Lucian flickered. You dare challenge elder blood? Valus spat. Ilara's voice rang clear and royal. I claim what my mother's guarded. Moon answers me. The entire chapel shook. The stained glass ceiling exploded inward as pure moonlight poured from the night sky above, striking Ilara where she stood. Her hair lifted in the wind. Silver markings spread across her skin like living constellations. Lucian stared proudly. That is my mother. Kaelin tore free of the weakening ward with a roar. Valus turned the black dagger toward Lucian. Then let the line end now. She lunged. Kaelin moved faster than thought. He crossed the chamber in a blur, caught her wrist inches from Lucian's chest, and snapped the bone cleanly. The dagger clattered away. Valus screamed and unleashed blue flame from her other hand. Kaelin took the blast full in the chest and kept advancing. You touched my child, he growled. He lifted her by the throat. But Ilara's voice stopped him. Wait. Kaelin turned, breathing fire and fury. Ilara stood beside Lucian, chains dissolving under her touch. Her eyes still shone with moonlight. She is not the root. Valus laughed weakly in Kaelin's grip. No, only the gardener. The chapel doors burst open behind them. Ronan entered with bleeding soldiers, and behind him came 3 richly armored nobles bearing the crests of House Varken, House Dreadmore, and House Sablemere. The true conspirators. Ronan bowed mockingly. Forgive the delay, my king. Kaelin dropped Valus like refuse. His face became terrifyingly calm. You live only because I was saving your death. Lord Varken sneered. Stand aside. The child cannot be allowed to rule. Lady Sablemere pointed at Ilara. Her blood corrupts the throne. Lucian stepped forward between his parents. I am 7, he announced. And already tired of adults. Even the enemy soldiers looked uncertain. Lord Dreadmore drew his blade. Kill them all. Battle exploded. Kaelin became the Wolf King in Tyre. Fur burst across his body, claws like silver scythes. He hurled himself into the nobles' guard line, scattering men like leaves. Ilara summoned moonlight spears that pinned attackers to the floor without killing them. Ronan charged Lucian personally. The boy's eyes flashed silver blue. Without touching him, every candle in the chapel flew through the air and struck Ronan in the face. He stumbled screaming. Lucian blinked. I did not know I could do that. Ilara shouted, neither did I. Kaelin caught Ronan by the collar mid-fall and dragged him across the altar steps. Names, Kaelin snarled one last time. Ronan spat blood. All of us. Good. Kaelin threw him at the 3 nobles, knocking them into a heap. Then he stood over them as guards loyal to Moonspire flooded the chapel behind Saris and Mara. The fight was over. The conspirators were bound. Valus gagged and chained. The surviving traitors surrendered. Smoke drifted through broken glass overhead as dawn's first light touched the chapel stones. Kaelin shifted back to human form and turned. Lucian launched himself into his arms. Kaelin caught him easily this time. Did you see my candles? Lucian asked proudly. I did. Was it majestic? It was deeply aggressive. Lucian beamed. Then Kaelin looked at Ilara. She stood exhausted, moonlight fading from her skin, but more beautiful than memory had ever allowed. He crossed to her slowly. The throne is yours beside me, he said. If you still want it. She studied him carefully. And if I refuse? I court you again. And if I refuse twice? I become unbearable. She laughed, a sound he thought buried forever. Then she placed her hand in his. One more chance, Kaelin Night. He bowed over her fingers like a man, not a king. I will spend my life earning it. Lucian groaned loudly. If you two begin kissing again, I request breakfast first. Cerys barked a laugh. Mara nearly choked trying not to. Kaelin lifted his son onto one hip, took Alara's hand with the other, and walked toward the chapel doors as sunlight spilled across the floor. Outside, the fortress knelt to its king. But Kaelin looked only at his family. For the first time in 7 years, he did not feel like a ruler returning to war. He felt like a husband coming home. The Luna who returned. 3 moons later, Moonspire Fortress no longer smelled of smoke and war. It smelled of cedarwood, fresh bread, rain-soaked stone, and the wild roses Alara had replanted across the terraces. The broken towers were rebuilt stronger. The traitor banners were burned in the courtyard. The 3 noble houses that conspired against the throne had been stripped of power and lands, their wealth given to villages they once starved. For the first time in many years, the kingdom was quiet. And that frightened Kaelin more than battle ever had. Because peace meant there was no excuse left to avoid the harder war, burning back the heart of the woman he never stopped loving. Kaelin stood outside the royal garden arch at dawn, holding a tray of breakfast he had prepared himself. Burned toast. Overcooked eggs. Tea that smelled vaguely dangerous. Cerys passed by, saw the tray, and winced. My king. Is this punishment for someone? It is breakfast. For enemies. Kaelin glared. She bowed quickly and kept walking. He entered the garden where Alara knelt among moon lilies, hands in the soil. Sunlight touched her silver hair like blessing. She looked up as he approached. You cooked again, she asked carefully. I improved. She looked at the blackened toast. From what? He set the tray down with dignity. Mockery does not become a queen. I am not queen yet. He crouched beside her. Then I shall endure it from a beautiful gardener. She smiled despite herself. Progress. Lucian suddenly dropped from a tree above them and landed perfectly between them. Good morning, he said proudly. Kaelin looked up. Why were you in the tree? I was spying on your romance. Alara sighed. That is not an acceptable hobby. It is educational. Kaelin pinched the bridge of his nose. You are definitely my son. Later that day, the great hall filled with nobles, guards, merchants, farmers, and pack leaders from every region. Word had spread, the Luna who returned would address the kingdom. Kaelin sat on the throne but did not wear his crown. Instead, it rested on the arm beside him. Empty. Waiting. When Alara entered in silver and midnight blue, the hall fell silent. Not because of beauty, though she was radiant. Because power walked with her now openly. Quiet, ancient, undeniable. Lucian marched beside her in a tiny formal coat, waving at everyone as if born to rule. Kaelin rose. He descended the steps and met Alara before the throne. In front of all gathered, he said, voice carrying through the chamber, I ask not as king, but as the fool who loved you first. Soft laughter moved through the hall. Will you stand beside me again? Alara looked around the room, then back at him. On conditions. Kaelin blinked. Name them. You stop solving arguments with violence. He grimaced. Reasonable. You listen when I speak. Difficult, but possible. You never cook unsupervised again. The hall erupted in laughter. Kaelin looked betrayed. Lucian raised a hand. I support mother. Kaelin sighed deeply. Agreed. Alara smiled and took his hand. Yes. The hall thundered with cheers. Kaelin placed the crown gently upon her head, not as possession, but as promise. Then Lucian shouted, now kiss dramatically. Even the guards laughed. So Kaelin did. And the kingdom cheered louder. That night, under the full moon, the family stood on the highest balcony of Moonspire. Below them, fires of celebration glowed across the mountainside. Music drifted upward. Wolves howled joyfully into the dark. Lucian leaned over the rail. When I become king, I will have 10 wolves, 2 swords, and no bedtime. You will have 1 tutor and many bedtimes, Elara said. This reign is tyranny. Kaelin lifted his son onto his shoulders. You will have something better than crowns, he said. Lucian frowned. What? Kaelin looked at Elara beside him, her hand in his. A family worth protecting. The boy considered this seriously, then nodded. Can I still have 2 swords? Kaelin smiled. We'll negotiate. The moon shone bright over Moonspire Fortress. No ghosts remained in the old house. No lies remained in the throne room. No distance remained between the hearts once torn apart. The Alpha King had returned unannounced to find his dead Luna alive. What he found after that was life itself. If this story gave you chills, touched your heart, or kept you on the edge of your seat, don't just watch, be part of the pack. Like this video to support more powerful werewolf stories. Subscribe for unforgettable tales of Alpha Kings, Luna Queens, and hidden destinies. Comment below, would you forgive after 7 years, or walk away forever? And most importantly, stay till the next story, because the moon always has another secret to reveal.